session today is actually kind of miraculous that we're doing this in a way, because Washington, DC is buried in a snowstorm, and Megan's, I'm sure, been involved with some coverage of that.
Yeah.
She is a DC reporter, and since we last talked to Megan, a 2010 Claflin grad of note, and a lot of things have happened in Washington. Let's just say that since the last time we talked to you, Megan.
Yes.
But today, she's going to talk to us about her job and how that unfolds on a daily basis or whatever in Washington. And she's going to probably extend it out a little bit broader to talk about how she went from Claflin to TV producing to TV reporting, and it's always a great session. So Megan, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, Mr. Harder. So I met Mr. Harder back in 2006, and if you get nothing else from this session today, it is important to build and maintain relationships, because since I have graduated, I feel so honored that he consistently brings me back every semester to speak with students. And so it is my honor to speak to you. And this is a conversation. Don't let me just talk about myself, ask questions, because I can talk about me all day, but you know, I want to know about you guys too, and specifically what you want to do and where you want to go and how can I help you get there. Does that make sense? Okay. I would love if everyone could turn on their cameras so I can see who I'm speaking with. If not, I understand, you know, you can't, but you know, get yourself together so I can see you. Okay, so I graduated from Claflin in 2010. I did a little bit of everything. I have worked in radio. I freelanced briefly with a newspaper, and I have been a TV producer. I have been a morning reporter. I have been a night side reporter. I have been a morning traffic anchor. And then I am currently a morning reporter in DC, and I am a fill-in traffic anchor and fill-in anchor. I specify the shifts I work because they're all very different. When you work mornings, I get up, my first alarm goes off at 1:45 in the morning. And yeah, I don't get off till 11 a.m. So I go to work. I have to be at work at 3 a.m. And I have to be TV ready depending on what I'm doing that day. I have to be TV ready by 4:25 a.m. So right now, the station is in transition with their traffic anchor position. And because I have traffic anchor experience, I do traffic 2 days a week right now, and I report 3 days a week. This is not a permanent schedule. This is something that is temporary. I don't know if these people gonna let me be the morning traffic anchor or not, but we're gonna find out. So either way, my shift is still from 3 a.m. till noon, but we get off at 11 because we don't take lunch breaks. And I'm in a union, and they have to give us a break. So we stop, if we don't take a true lunch break, we stop at 11 a.m. And so, yeah, so that's what I do. It's an insurrection. That word has never been used so much until what happened. I think that word, it describes what happened, but it was also a mob of thugs who stormed the Capitol, right? A mob of people who had a hard time accepting reality, a mob of people who were misled. And that's just the reality of it, right? And so we had that happen a few weeks ago. January was a really interesting month. You know, you see the memes about how we had this one Wednesday, that the next Wednesday, and then this the next Wednesday. And it was just like, yo, what is going on? Like, it was like 2020 part 2. It was like January felt like December 60th, you know, like that's what the end of January felt like. So now, right now, we are experiencing some snow. We're not getting all the snow that New York and stuff are getting, but it has been snowing consistently since Sunday. It is a little bit warmer here, so it's not as much snow on the ground, but the roadways are wet and it's slippery and it's dangerous. And I did a little sliding on my way to work this morning. I was like, okay. But yeah, so when the insurrection happened, I was actually off from work. I don't think anybody could have predicted that it was going to be what it became. And so my phone started blowing up and everybody was like, oh my God, be safe, be safe. I'm like, y'all, I'm at home watching this thing on CNN just like y'all, you know, like I am not there. I don't live near that area. Mind you, I don't live far because DC is not that big. And so I live maybe 7 miles away, but that 7 miles could easily be 45 minutes away. So I don't live near, I live on the northwest side of town, and the Capitol's not on that side of town. So I was at home and I was watching it, and then I covered it the next morning. And the following, so what happened is we instantly, every reporter, I'm sure everywhere, but especially here in the Capitol, went into instant breaking news mode, right? So you, as soon as you find out that something is happening, you turn on the TV, right? And then you start checking your email, and then you get on Twitter. Like it's like the chain of events. I wasn't at home when I found out what was going on. So my first instinct was to get on Twitter, and then I checked my email. And then when I got home, I turned on the TV, and I was flipping. I was on the phone with one of my reporter friends, and she was watching CNN, and I was watching CBS, and then we would take turns flipping, and then we would flip the Fox News to see what they were saying. Just kind of checked in with all the different media outlets to see what they were saying and what they were seeing and the angles that they got. So the next morning when my coverage of it began, we were called into work at midnight. And because of COVID, there's a lot of different ways that we work now. So I am one of the employees who it's clear to go in the building. And so because of that, because they only let so many people, I didn't go into the building, I think for like at least 6 or 7 straight months. And then I went in to fill in anchor a few times. And then it wasn't until December where I started going in the building consistently. And that's only because I can fill in multiple different roles. And so that's why, because our traffic anchor, she was off for a few weeks for the holidays. So I filled in for 2 weeks for her. And then our weekend anchor was off. And so then I had to fill in for her. And so during the aftermath of the insurrection coverage, because I am one of those people who's clear to go into buildings, I am not allowed to be in crowds at all. And if I do get in a crowd, then I have to quarantine for 2 weeks to be able to come back in the building, or go get tested and have a negative test result to come back in the building, because COVID outbreaks, they are real. And so they try to keep everyone safe. So I was near Freedom Plaza, which is maybe like a mile from the not even a mile, maybe like a half a mile from the Capitol. I could see the Capitol in the background, but I was in the hotels where a lot of the people were staying. So we also had a hotel room booked in that same hotel for safety purposes in case we needed to report from an area that was safe. And so I did go into that hotel just to kind of see what it was. And so I like hid my work badge so nobody could see it. And I was in the Starbucks line in the hotel and just listening to the conversations that the people who participated in the events the day before were having was mind-boggling. Some of them were then concerned about losing their jobs because of stuff on social media, if anybody saw them. And I was just like, you wait until now to think about losing your job? It just didn't really make sense to me. But then the whole thing didn't make sense, right? So there was that. And this is strictly opinion-based at this point. This is not journalism at all. This is me giving my opinion. But I don't think to any logical person that day made sense, right? So I was asked to interview some people who participated in it and, you know, their thoughts. And I was having a really good conversation. So I approached a group of people. They were like, fake news, blah, blah, blah. You got an agenda. So I'm like, okay, done with y'all. So I saw this woman, my photographer and I were sitting in the truck. And I saw this woman, she was smoking a cigarette, right? And she was by herself. And I figured I would wait till she got done smoking her cigarette and ask her. And she was really friendly. I walked up to her and I said, hi, my name is Megan. I'm with Channel 9 News, or WSA 9. And I want to talk about what happened. I was like, do you mind? She said, sure. She said, I had my mask on. And so she said, let me put my mask on since you had yours on, and maintain a distance. And I was like, okay, well, this is off to a good start, because a lot of these people are also anti-maskers and COVID is real. And she was just really surprisingly friendly. She told me that she's not a Republican or a Democrat, that she's an independent, that she didn't believe the outcome of the election. She didn't have any solid reasons as to why she didn't believe the outcome of the election. But as the conversation continued, she was able to come up with some. And one of her reasons was that she felt like the numbers changed too drastically, too quickly. And I was like, well, do you understand the counting of absentee ballots and things like that overseas? Like when the military, when their votes come in from overseas, the whole shebang. And I was like, do you understand how all of that works? And that may be why you saw that drastic change in numbers. And she was like, yeah, but I just don't believe that many people voted for him. And at that point, you know, what can you say? There's no evidence of voter fraud. There's no evidence of voter tampering. And then sadly, the conversation ended shortly thereafter because a buddy of hers walked up and she did not have on a mask. And I asked her to put on a mask or back up from me. And she would do neither. And she was like, well, you just want to put this on Facebook. She didn't know anything about me. She didn't know where I worked or anything. And she's like, you just want to put this on Facebook. You have an agenda. I said, well, sis, I wasn't even talking to you. And then in that moment, I realized I was coming out of character. And so I was like, you know, you have a great day. And I got back in the car and we left. So that was my experience. And then I had to go do another live shot after that because we have shows from 4 a.m. until 4 a.m. to 7. I mean, 4:25 a.m. till 7. But I think that day we went on at 4 a.m. because they were still certifying the election votes. And that was my story. That was my angle that morning, was the certification of the election and that Joe Biden was in fact the now president of the United States. And so I did a live shot for our 9 a.m. show too. We have a 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then we have a noon. And I was live at 9 a.m. And then we had a few people who were, you know, driving by in their cars, yelling things out. A couple of women walking behind you, giving you the finger in your live shot. And I'm like, you know, we're not live right now, but thank you. So yeah, so all of that was happening. But you just ignore those people. I'm really good at ignoring things that don't make sense. I'm even better at ignoring people who don't make sense. And so when people are looking for an argument or something like that, I just don't have one to give you. I'm willing to have a conversation and I'm willing to try to understand your point of view. But I'm also, my job is to educate you on what is fact. And if you choose not to accept it, that's beyond my control. But as long as I tried, that's my job, okay? So yeah, so before we move on, any questions, comments, concerns? I'm really animated too, and it's also because I'm a little sleepy at this point. Go ahead. Any questions, comments, concerns? No? Hello? No? Okay. So I'm gonna keep moving. So yeah, so then inauguration day, we were expecting to do, you know, this big coverage, but it just didn't happen because the insurrection happened a week or 2 weeks before that. And so now there's all this security in place around the Capitol. And, you know, I think people forget that while DC is, you know, yes, there is the Capitol and the White House is here and all the monuments and stuff, but there's hundreds of thousands of people who live in Washington, D.C. and their way of life was affected. So they closed down all the restaurants. There was no indoor dining in D.C. during that time. There was a curfew put in place. I mean, there were all these things that affected people who just live here, who had nothing to do with this. And it's kind of selfish sometimes when you think about it in that way, because it's like, man, you guys just came to our home and changed our way of life temporarily. And right now it's changing it permanently because there's still all these barriers up around the White House, up around the Capitol. Usually when it snows, the Capitol is one of the places that you can go sledding. Can't do that because the barriers are still there. They asked them to let them down. They said no. The Guard is still here. The National Guard is still here. There's still a few thousand of them in town. And so it just looks different, and it just looks like a militarized zone. Not to mention this summer we had all the protests. So these businesses are hurting. I mean, they've had to board up their businesses time and time again because things keep happening here. So it's really interesting to live in the focal point of where all these different things happen, from protests from, you know, Black Lives Matter to protesting of the election results. And it's weird when national news is our local news, because I work for a local news station, and the same thing that is being covered on, you know, the MSNBCs, CNNs, and Fox Newses of the world is our local news. And it's interesting. for it to be that way. You know? Still no questions, comments, concerns? Talk to me. Talk back to me. What do you guys want to be when you grow up? Let's talk about that. If I have to call names, I will. I don't mind. Essence, you're in the middle, so I'm gonna start with you. What do you want to be when you grow up?
When I grow up, ultimately I want to host and produce my own talk show.
Ooh, you want to host and produce it? Okay, what do you want your talk show to be about? Like, you want it like a Wendy Williams or a Tamron Hall?
Honestly, I really don't want it to go. I know definitely not Wendy Williams type, but really focusing on, like, I wouldn't say mental health, but that is a piece of it, because I know now, like, just me and my friends, we go back and forth debating, like, things going on at the time and how mental health plays into it, because I don't think mental health is something that's put in the forefront as much as it should be. So mainly, like, just everyday things, and then how we should cope with it, and how, like, we don't deal with things how we should, but incorporate everyday news and everyday situations.
Okay, where do you want this talk show to live? Do you want it to be on television? Do you want it to be like a YouTube series? Do you want it to be an Instagram series? What kind of home do you want it to have?
So ideally, I need to start as soon as possible so it can start YouTube or podcast, but ultimately, eventually, definitely television.
Okay. Have you had any what year student are you?
I'm a junior.
You're a junior. Have you had any internships?
No, ma'am. I'm in the works now. With COVID, I was starting with some, but but now I'm definitely in the works trying more, and I'm trying to hurry up and launch my YouTube channel so that I will have products to show them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even know what interning looks like in COVID. I just thought about that. I have no idea what it looks like with COVID. But I definitely think you should intern and get some internships with a television station, even if it's news. The reason being is producing, when it comes to shows in that format, is pretty much, I think, the same. I've never worked on a talk show, but I imagine from watching it, and having been a producer before, I produced for 3.5 years, that it's pretty similar, because you have to find topics, producers write, and they build stuff. They create the flow of the show. Depending on like what size television station you work in, you can do a lot more than that. So like I built graphics and full screens and things like that as well. And I even still do that some now in my reporting, because of the skill set. And because I just want to make sure I can make it look a certain way. I would, if nothing else, relationships and interning. Don't know exactly how you guys are going to intern right now, but figure out what these stations and places are doing to use interns, because there may be some virtual interning opportunities. So I am going to go to, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, is it Truck? Is that how you say it?
Yes, ma'am. It's Truck.
Okay. What do you want to do?
I want to be a photographer, videographer, kind of like editings, like shots, and then recording, mostly like video contents.
Ooh, okay. Yes, that is a really amazing asset. Do you want to do still photography as well?
Yes, ma'am. So like DOP.
Okay. So I have a few friends actually, who are still photographers, and they have their work published in some of the museums or printed in some of the museums. And so my advice to you is, whenever something is happening, grab your camera and go. You don't have to talk to anybody. You just get to take pictures. I interviewed a gentleman, and he's a buddy of mine now. But I interviewed him because his work was featured in a 30-day promo on BET. He took some really good pictures during the summer of the Black Lives Matter protests, and they ran this piece from different photographers from around, I guess, I don't know if they were around the nation, but photographers who had captured different images, and a lot of his were used in this promo that ran for 30 days on BET. And it was really cool that he just went out there with his camera and took pictures of stuff that was happening, and it got, you know, nationally recognized. So when it comes to videographers in the TV world, especially when it comes to news, it kind of depends on the market. So there's a place for it and there's not a place for it. What protests have taught us in this market is that you need photojournalists. You know, they try to weed them out and they try to make us do all of the work ourselves, but it's like, come on, y'all. We need a team. We need to be a team. I need a cameraman, you know, like I need a photographer to work with me. They will try to make us do it all ourselves, but what we've learned is that it doesn't always work the best. And especially even in a day like this when it's snowing, and, you know, a reporter can't do it all by themselves. So I would really focus on making sure that you understand your camera shots and your angles, and how to, you know, caddy corner the person. You know, you don't want to shoot somebody straight on. You want to put them at an angle and leave a little bit of lead room for it. You want to make sure that you know how to white balance so your video isn't blue, because there's nothing more embarrassing than getting back to the station and all your video is blue, or and you can't color correct it in whatever system you're using to edit. I think you guys use Avid at Claflin still. You still use Avid?
I think so. Also, they're also providing Adobe's right now.
Oh, Premiere, yes, love Premiere. So yeah, so it's really hard sometimes to color correct video. Is if you shoot it right the first time, then you don't have to worry about color correcting, right? And then editing. So I would watch, you know, I would really watch, depending if you want to work for news, right? I would watch a lot of newscasts and find, you know, those good editors, because there's a lot of them. There's a guy, his name is Brendan Keefe. It's either Brendan Keefe or Brendan O'Keefe. He's a reporter in Atlanta at WXIA, and he's won a crap ton of Emmys for, you know, some of his work. And it's primarily, I remember the year he and I was at the Emmys. I was nominated the year that I met him. He won maybe, like, it felt like 20 Emmys for the same story. But what I noticed with that story, it was shot and edited really well. So he used GoPros, he used his regular camera, he used his cell phone, he used every type of camera you could think of, and he shot from so many different angles and edited it so beautifully together. It was a really interesting story. So I definitely think there's an ongoing market in need for photographers. So again, look into, and also there is a need for women photographers. So I went to NABJ a few years ago with one of my mentees, and she left the conference with 3 job offers. And I know it's because she was a woman, you know, she's also a Black woman, which there's, you know, a deficit of those. And I'm going to assume you're of Asian heritage. And so I know there's a deficit for that as well. And there, NABJ is the National Association of Black Journalists, but there's one for Asian Americans, and there's also one for Hispanic Americans as well. So those conferences have been held virtual last year, and I think they're going to be virtual this year again. But you should really look into going to that, because use your minority status to your advantage, because it works. You know, sometimes it works against you, but most times it works for you, you know? So I would definitely stay on that and see, you know, if there are freelancing opportunities as well, because sometimes smaller markets, they may not want to hire people, but they may have freelance opportunities. I know in Columbia, the TV stations there, and I don't know if they're still doing those because I'm not there, but they probably did it this year, but it probably looked differently, but they'll probably do it again this upcoming school year. They have high school football, right? It's a good thing. Sports is a good thing to learn how to shoot and edit. And they hire kids from, well, not kids, young adults from college, sometimes to help them shoot football on Friday nights and edit those videos and turn the video around really quickly like that. And that's great experience to get, like, sooner than later. Hope that helps.
Thank you, ma'am.
Megan, Jalen's going to be interested in what you got to say about that too, because I have told him about how difficult it is. Multimedia reporting kind of grew out of the old backpack journalist thing that you got to know how to do everything. But
Yeah.
I've told him consistently exactly what you just said. It doesn't make it the ideal that you've got to go out there and do everything by yourself. But that's unfortunately the economics of the business now lend itself to that. But Jalen's really into photography. Jalen, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm more of a video person than photography. So what I want to do is write my own movies and TV shows. But I'm trying to get more into news. So any advice you have to like help me along would be awesome.
Why are you trying to get more into news?
Because the more I think about it and the more I keep asking people, they keep telling me that news is the easiest way to get into the multimedia business. So I need
But that's not what you want to do.
Mm, yeah. That's
So
what
what?
I'm
So
saying.
I understand getting your foot in the door,
Mhm.
and getting some experience in some professional realm, and that does matter. But I also think you should put a lot of effort into doing what you want to do.
Right.
You know.
Definitely.
So why there's always I have friends. So we always look at things as like we create what success is in our heads, right? So we think if our show isn't on ABC or CBS or whatever or BET that is not successful. I have a friend. He wrote, shot, and edited an entire series that lives on YouTube, and he gets money from it every month.
Right.
Like don't sell yourself short. It doesn't have to be on television for it to be successful. It doesn't
Right.
have to be on television for it to be good. There's so many different independent films and not films, independent groups that you can get funding for. I'm not that familiar with them, but I don't think you should give up your dream just to say you're doing something. It might be a little harder. It might take a little bit longer. But I was a producer for 3.5 years and was miserable for about 3 of those 3.5 years because I didn't want to be a producer. I wanted to be a reporter, and I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, but I had my foot in the door, right? So everybody was proud of me. Oh, it looked good. I work at WLTX, I'm in the news business. I didn't want to do that. So I
Right.
really think if it's something that you want to do, then you should put your efforts into that. I think that you should look for script writing and film writing workshops to go to. That may not be something you can do at Claflin, but that may be something you can do outside of the university. And I think you should look into that. I think that you should go ahead and start writing those things. And I think you should film them, and I think you should edit them, and I think you should put them on the World Wide Web and let people watch them and see if people will take an interest into them. Because
Right.
honestly, this was a friend of mine I'm telling you about. I didn't know he has a mass comm degree from Morris College, and he's older than I am. He's probably, I think he's 37 or something like that. And that's what his dream is. He wants to act, he wants to write, he wants to do this stuff. And he has a day job, but he also writes, and he films, and he edits, and he submits them to different festivals, so people, it gets more eyes on them, and then that's how he also gets funding for them. He finds people who can be producers who can also help fund them. But I mean, if you want to do news, fine. He used to do news too, and now he works. What does he do? What's his day job? His day job, he works for the airport. He's a air traffic controller. He has a good job, but he has no interest in that. And he wishes that he would have focused more on what he wanted to do while he was young. So this is my other piece of advice to you. While you're young and you don't have bills, do not get any, okay? Don't get any, and then go and chase your dreams while you're broke. It's so much fun chasing your dreams while you broke. But the moment you buy that car, that brand new car after you graduate from college, you are working to pay bills. And your life becomes about surviving. Why you don't have no bills and why you broke, do whatever you want to do, figure it out. Live life very brokish until you can get to where you want to go. Sierra, what you got to say? Because I see your face twisting up.
Late for that.
Huh?
Late for that. Shorty got bills.
You already got bills? Yeah, don't get any more. Don't get any more. I remember, so there's another Claflin night. His name is Ardarius Stewart. our Darius used to, he went to Claflin, graduated from Claflin, and then he worked with me in Charleston. He was a videographer. And I remember I told that boy, I said, don't buy no new car. I said, go buy you a cash car, and don't buy you a car that has a car note, because if you do, you are going to be working to pay that bill. And he didn't listen. He went and bought one. And then after the fact, he told me, he was like, you were right. And I was like, I told you. Now, granted, he didn't get like the most expensive. He got a car that that was economical. So that was at least smart on his part. But yeah, you're working to pay bills. And another thing too, I don't know where you guys are from. I'm gonna tell you where I'm from. I am from a town called Paxville, South Carolina. It does not have a zip code. It does not have a grocery store. It has 2 gas stations, a Family Dollar, and 1 stoplight. And my parents live on a road that is pebbled. It's like rocked, kind of rock paved, and then it splits off into 2 dirt roads. I don't have no neighbors. Mr. Candy lived about 2 football fields away, and then the other neighbors way on down the road, right? I am a country girl through and through. And people, sometimes will make you believe that you can't be from these small towns and make it. You can, okay? No matter where you come from, you can make it. They also tell you that you have to move away from home sometimes to do it. Biggest lie ever told, okay? The reason I say that is because I moved to Atlanta after I graduated from college. And I lived in Atlanta for 3.5 years. And not near one of my dreams came true while living in Atlanta, right? When I moved back home, all my dreams came true. So I got my career started late. When I graduated from college, I had a whole nother life outside of journalism. And I was also miserable those 3.5 years too. So my first job, I was an executive team leader of guest experiences and soft lines at Target, which is the fanciest way of saying assistant store manager over the clothes and the cashiers. Hated it. If I ever wear red and khaki again, it is not on purpose. And then after that, I was a personal banker for JP Morgan and Chase. Hated it, got fired. And so then after that, I wired too much money out of somebody's account on a mistake. My boss got fired with me, and I really need to let that hurt go, but it's the truth. Anywho, so I was a banker for 3 months, got fired from that. I actually did break some records. I was exceptionally well at, I performed really well at all of these jobs, except for that one. Can you guys hold for just sorry about that. So yeah, so after I got fired from the bank, what did I do? I worked at Aldo, the shoe store. I was a store manager in training with them. I quit that, and then I worked for H&M. I was a department manager with them. Hate that. When I was working at H&M, I told myself that I wouldn't quit or get fired from any other job to go do something that I didn't want to do, right? That was the goal. And so when I was working for H&M, Fifth Third Bank called me because I had interviewed with them some months prior, and they asked me if I wanted to come work with them. And I told myself, I'm a Christian, get down with the Jesus. And I told myself, and I told God, I made him a promise. I said I wouldn't quit or get fired to go do something else I didn't want to do. And my motto during that time was everything that looks like God isn't God. And when Fifth Third called me, they called me at a location that was close to me. It was making more money plus commission Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. I was working weekends. I was working every schedule known to mankind. I was telling grown people how to fold clothes. I was so sick of H&M. And I said, no. I turned it down because I said I wasn't going to leave a job to go do something that I didn't want to do. And I didn't want to be a banker. And so fast forward a week later, I interned at WLTX in News 19 in Columbia with my senior year in college. I kept in contact with them. Whenever I came home, I stopped by. I was friends with him on social media. And a week later to the day, Mary Beth Jacoby, the former news director, she called me and said, "Hey, you want to move back home?" Sure. She said, "You want to be a news producer?" Sure. Okay. That's how I got my first job in TV. So I think it was all those things working together. It was me working together, me being faithful and staying true to my word, the universe, God, whatever you believe in. It was alignment. It all fell into place, right? You know, I'm not trying to project my beliefs on you, but I do believe that things, you know, come together in the right time. And what's for you is for you. And it might take you a little longer to get it, but it won't pass you by. And so I moved home, and all of my dreams came true in Columbia, South Carolina, which is the closest TV station to my parents' home. It's an hour away from where my parents live. It's the viewing area that my county is in. I'm from Clarendon County. And so it's the viewing area. And when I finally started reporting on air, my mama was able to see it, you know? And then from there, I worked in Charleston, and then I left Charleston and came here. Networking is super important. I can't stress that enough. Network, 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 network. Don't stalk, but network, you know? Okay, so I'm gonna go to, is this Kayla? Hope?
Kyla,
Kyla, sorry. Hey, what do you wanna do?
I want to be a director. That's like my ultimate goal. But I also
A director.
just I want to direct films like drama, comedy. Well, films and series like comedies, like Insecure type comedy. And yeah, that's my goal. And I love working behind the camera and like physical production and stuff like that. That's my goals.
Okay, so in local news, there's directors. They
Really?
direct shows, yeah. So there's so many different jobs at a TV station I think that people don't know about. So the person who decides what actually like physically comes up on camera is the director's job. She's the one back there pushing the buttons and making it actually appear on television. So that is something, and there's not a lot of women who do that either. So you could definitely work your way into that field if you have an interest in the technical side of things, because that's a good place to start. And I'm stressing the difference between males and women and men because there, you know, has been so much emphasis on diversity from that standpoint, right? There's always an emphasis on racial diversity, and sometimes there's an emphasis on age diversity. But there also is a big emphasis in those technical positions on men and women. And because that's a male-dominated industry or part of the industry, as a woman, it should definitely work to your advantage. At my station, we actually, this is the most women I've ever seen direct. We have 3 women directors. At my last station, we had 2. And so the station before that, we had 1, but they fired her. Or she quit, 1 of the 2. She stopped working there. But so yeah, so there's definitely a lane for that. And I think that could definitely help you understand camera angles. It can understand positioning those cameras, you know, in the right spaces. And I think it could be, if you can, you know, do that, then you can work at different places. I mean, it doesn't always have to be local news, but you can work, you know, on those different TV shows that you have interest in as well. So, but I think news would be a great place to start, just because, especially in smaller markets, you're able to make mistakes, you'll be forgiven, and then you can go on and do what you want to do after that. Okay, we have Taji. Am I saying your name, or is it Taj?
Tajay.
Tajay. Okay. What do you want to do?
A television news reporter.
You want to be a news reporter?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you watch the news?
Yes, ma'am.
What news do you watch?
Well, I'm in Charleston, so I watch mostly Channel 2.
You watch Channel 10? You watch Carolyn Murray now? I used to work at ABC4 when I lived in Charleston.
Yes, ma'am.
I think okay, so I'm not even saying this because I'm biased, but I do think that you should watch Channel 4 sometimes, only because I know the crew that works there. They have really experienced photographers, and some of their, excuse me, reporters are really good storytellers. And you could take notes from them. There is Ann Emerson is probably the most seasoned reporter at Channel 4. Behind her is Brody Hart. And I think Brody and Ann tell stories very differently, but there are two people you can look at and gain some information from, and probably, excuse me, get some tips from, because they story tell really well. Neither of them are MMJs or MSJs, which stands for multimedia journalists, which is a one-man band where you shoot, write, and edit all your own stuff. They don't do that. They have a photographer. They work with a photographer every day, but they have good resources, good sources to feed them stories, and they also tell the stories really well. So if you don't like writing, then news reporting is not for you, because news reporters, we write. And my biggest piece of advice to you would also be to make sure that you're reading and reading often. There's nothing more beautiful than learning new words and figuring out ways to incorporate them in your scripts. And so you want to make sure that you have a pretty solid vocabulary so that all of your stories don't sound the same. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I can't speak to Channel 2's news because I didn't work. I know some of those people just from, living there, but I don't know their product as well. But I do know Channel 4's product, and I do know that they have some really good photographers there, and they have some pretty good storytellers. And Ann and Brody are two of those who I know are really good storytellers who are still there. There's also another reporter, Caroline Balchunas. She's a reporter at Channel 4 too. Caroline, when she wants to, she is a really good reporter. She writes really well. And another bigger reporter who I like to, or two bigger reporters who I like to pull inspiration from, Boyd Hubert. He's a really good storyteller, Boyd Hubert. And Steve Hartman. Steve Hartman has these packages that air on CBS Evening News on Fridays. And they're just so inspirational. I don't know, Mr. Harder, if you're a Steve Hartman fan, but I am a huge Steve Hartman fan. So yeah, a couple of reporters to look at. And then also making sure that you can tell the story from a factual standpoint and not an editorial standpoint. There's a very blurred line now with editorial pieces in journalism. And when journalists get, I think Chris Como and Don Lemon are very entertaining, but they have now gone away from journalism. And they still do journalism sometimes, but they are commentators. And that is not to be confused with being a journalist. Another good storyteller from a reporting standpoint is, what's his name? Mola Langi. He's a CBS News correspondent. He actually used to work at the station that I work at now. And I think he's a pretty good, solid reporter, and especially with his delivery on air. He typically works on the CBS Evening News, and I think he does really good. There's also a lady, her name is Darlene, and I'm gonna tell you her last name. She is an amazing investigative journalist. I'm gonna tell you her last name in a second. Stand by. Darlene Hill. I think that's her name. Is this her? No, this ain't her. I lied. I can't find it. What's her? I think it's. Okay, her name on Instagram is, I had to go to Instagram to find her real quick. Her name is Darlene J on Instagram. She didn't have a huge following at all, but she is a really good reporter, an investigative journalist. So I would look I would look her up too. She just won some awards recently for some of her storytelling as well. She's done a few investigative pieces that I think are really good. So I would check out a few of those. But the biggest advice I have for you two is one, interning. I don't know what that looks like now, so I'm sorry about that. You guys are going through college during a very strange and unprecedented, I'm so sick of that word, time. But is to find those internships. It will be very hard for you, in my experience, my life experience and my friend's life experience, to get started if you don't have internships. And if you don't show that you can already do the job, because so many people now want you to just come in and know how to do it, and they want you to get that experience through interning. And I would definitely practice writing, shooting, writing, and editing your own stuff, because that's the way the business is. All the way up here in DC, people are shooting, writing, and editing their own stuff. I edit my own stuff. I haven't had, the only time somebody edits something for me is like one morning I woke up and all the other reporters had called out, so I was on 2 stories. And so they didn't tell me they were all calling out. I was like, why didn't I get the memo? Anyway, they all called out. I was on 2 stories, and so they edited my my pieces for me, because I also had to then get to my live shot in the morning. But make sure that you're watching really good. I think ABC correspondents are super good. I mean, like, especially, I like to watch ABC News on the weekends, because I like to see how their correspondents deliver the news, how they're very familiar with their scripts, and they're not reading off of paper, they're not reading off of a cell phone. If that's something that you can master early on in your career, you are so much better off if you can do that early on. Who did I leave off? We have Falade. Correct me if I'm wrong. What do you want to do?
I apologize for my camera being off. My computer camera is broken.
Okay.
But I'm not exactly sure what position I want yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping for like maybe something editorial, maybe a producer, something like in that range.
What year student are you?
I'm a junior.
So we need to be figuring this thing out, sweetie.
Yeah.
We got to figure this thing out. It's important. I wouldn't leave college not knowing exactly what it is that you want to get into. Now, it doesn't mean you have to stay with that for life, but knowing what direction you want to head in, you know, because that may change. There was a time in a brief, very, very brief time where I thoroughly enjoyed producing, and I always enjoyed producing. I just wanted the opportunity to do more. But there was a time where I thoroughly enjoyed producing and was planning a career in that. Because there's a little bit more stability in producing. There's probably more money early on to be made in producing than there is reporting. I think. I don't know. In the beginning, you don't make any money. I was broke. This is the first time I hadn't been broke consistently. I wasn't broke in Charleston, but there were some times when I was kind of broke, you know? But in the beginning, you just know that you're not going to make a whole lot of money. And that needs to change. That in this business, it needs to change. It is not fair. You cannot expect people to give their entire life to a job and not be able to afford to eat. When I was living in Columbia, my first contract was $27,000. And that was like $800 every 2 weeks. I lived in income-based housing with a roommate. And I made just enough money that I didn't qualify for anything. So I didn't get any, I tried to go get on EBT, they wouldn't give it to me. They wouldn't give it to me. And that really needs to change. And I don't know how we're gonna take a stand against that. And it happens everywhere, throughout even larger markets where they underpay people. They're gonna try to get as much, they want you to do 3 jobs and pay you for a half of one person's job. And so you have to make sure that you have some passion behind what you're doing, because that's the only thing that keeps you going, because it damn sure ain't the money. It's not the money. The money does not motivate you at all. This is the first time. And so this is the confusing part of it, is sometimes I don't think people fully understand what your salary is supposed to do for you. Your salary is supposed to be able to provide you a livable wage. Your salary is also supposed to be able to provide you the opportunity to save some money. your salary is also supposed to provide you the opportunity to take a vacation. And if your salary doesn't do that for you, you're not making enough money. And in news, for a long time, your salary won't provide those things for you. So that is my advice, why I say don't go get bills. If you don't have them, don't go get them. Stay on everything that of your parents is for as long as you can, if you can. Now, I understand that's not everyone's reality. So I get that. I can totally relate to that. I had to get a phone bill. I had to get a car. So I get it. But if you don't have to get those things, don't. Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'm on Instagram. Y'all on Instagram? I'm Megan the Woman on Instagram. That's really
I actually did have a question.
What's up?
I wanted to, since you have worked in like Columbia, Charleston, and DC, have you seen like stark differences from working in different areas?
Stark differences?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, DC is a much faster pace news, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it also kind of just depends on the station too, and the culture of the station. So the station I worked at in Charleston, they're a big storytelling station.
Mm-hmm.
And so they like MPPA format styles storytelling. They really value photographers and working in a team effort. And so as a reporter, you're able to focus on so much more because you don't have to shoot and edit your stuff. All you have to do is do the interviews, like actual verbally do the interviews and write your piece. And that makes such a difference because you're working with a team. In Columbia, one-man band, you shoot, write, edit, drive, the whole shebang. And it doesn't give you the opportunity to focus on storytelling because you're trying to make deadline. And so those are differences, but that's more station by station versus market by market, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Sierra, did you have a question?
So I plan on being a lot of things.
You said you what?
I want to be a lot of things.
Okay.
I want to be a producer in a TV production. I don't want to do nothing with news, though. I can have that. I don't want to do nothing with news. I'm more of a comedian, drama. Like, I want to be in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also want to have my own YouTube channel. But then my biggest dream, one of my dreams is to open up my own outlet. So I also want to be a business owner. And then the biggest dream that I want to accomplish is open up my own performing arts college. So I want to be a lot of things. And I'm trying to figure out which is the best way to work, like which one should I work on first, like my path, figure it out. Because I'm a junior as well. So it's like, I know what I want to be. I know what I want to do. I just don't know which one I should tackle first.
So you want to be a producer first. Well, that was the first thing you said, is that you wanted to be a producer.
Right.
So produce something and put it somewhere and let people see it. Because I don't think you can open the college until you master the very thing that you want to teach, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't create a school for that. And when you say create a school, what do you mean, like an accredited university, or do you mean like, what do you mean?
Like, I would want it to be a university, but I want it to specifically focus on performing arts. So rather that be dance, acting, music, graphic designs, digital designs, I want to focus like everything you could think of in the entertainment industry. I want that university to be accredited for. So when they apply and they see that they went to my college, they know this college specifically focused on the industry.
I couldn't tell you what to do to get that off the ground, but I could tell you, I don't know, girl. I don't know anything about that. I know there's a lot of good universities that already exist that focus on performing arts, but I couldn't even begin to tell you what to do. But I do think, why don't you want to work in news? Why do you say it, y'all can have that?
I just feel like with the news, yeah, there's good news that get put out there, but it's mostly bad news, and I don't do good with bad news. So I'm more of the person, like, if I see somebody sad or they watching the news and it's bad news on there, I'm one of those people who will make you forget about it. So I can't sit here and be the one.
I feel like people who say that the news only shows bad news don't watch the news.
It's sad.
There's no way. There's no way you watch the news and that's your impression of it, because there's so many different. If you're talking about CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, that's not news. There's only very short windows where they actually do real news. But if you watch local news, there is such a variety. All right, so when I was a traffic anchor, I had a whole segment that was my social segment. They literally let me put whatever I wanted to put on that segment on air. I used to shout out my friends, tell them happy birthday. I literally did whatever I wanted to do. And I did that every single day. Of course, we had to do, if there was a shooting or a fire or something like that, we had to cover it. We had to cover school board and council meetings, but we also had really good stories. Not last Black History Month, but Black History Month, I think before, this has been 2019. I did a whole series about Black artists of the Low Country. And it was just people who I thought were decent artists and I wanted their stories to be told. So people who say, I just did a story about, I saw one of my homies who, he's a Marine, and he posted a congratulations to a few of his battle buddies who participated in the inauguration. From his Instagram post, I made him connect me with those soldiers so I could tell their story. There's good news on the news. You're not watching the news.
I know, I said there's good news. It's just, I hate the bad news part.
That's life. There's nothing. That's life, Sierra girl. You ain't about to stress me out. Anyway, there is good news. I think that because I've only worked in news media as far as radio, as far as, print and television, I'm an advocate for, people working in news, because I think diversity of voices matter. If that's your impression of it, I challenge you, one, to watch the news. And then I also challenge you to get into the business and change that. If that's what you think it is, change it. So I have one of my traffic anchor friends, the one who actually started me got me into being a traffic anchor. She does an entertainment segment. She does the E-Block. There's also lifestyle shows. Like my television station has a lifestyle show. The station I worked at in Charleston had a lifestyle show. So there's other things under the realm of a news organization. It's not just news. So don't write off the industry as a whole, because you're going to block out opportunities. I filled in Charleston, when I lived in Charleston, when I went back to mornings the second time, and doing traffic, I was able to fill in on our lifestyle show a lot. One of them was always off, and I was the go-to co-host for that show. And I mean, it was an amazing time and opportunity to just tell feature pieces of the Low Country, or to participate in that type of show, which was a lifestyle show. And that company, which was Sinclair, they have lifestyle shows all across the nation. The station I work for now, we have a show called Great Day Washington, I think is what it's called, which is a lifestyle show. So don't sleep on news.
All right, Megan, I need to get you to, we need you to be a spokesman for the media. I love that. I want one more question quick I have. You said the day of the insurrection, and however else we're defining what we want to call it, you watched CNN, Fox, and all that to get so quick. Did you see them doing news that day, or were they still back into commentary on everything?
I think everybody was in a constant state of what the hell is happening. That's what it looked like. Everybody was kind of in awe. So I flipped between, because I work for a CBS affiliate, so I watch them a lot, and I love Nora O'Donnell. She is, I just love her. So I flipped between all of those stations, and they were doing more news on CNN, but then there's also the commentary digs,
Yep. Oh yeah, constant digs, and you go to Fox, it's digs the other way.
Yeah, and Fox was actually surprisingly reporting what was happening. They couldn't ignore it.
Yeah.
They couldn't ignore it.
All right, it's been great to have you today, and these folks can connect with you on Instagram.
Yeah, Megan the Woman.
And I'll give them your email address too, okay? In case they need to send you that. I can't thank you enough for being here today. In class, I'll brief you on what we're going to do with Megan's notes and how we're going to handle that. But,
Mr. Harder, give them my personal email address. And the reason I say that, I'll make sure you have it, because my work email, I get so many emails.
That's
I
fine.
almost missed your email. So
Good. I should have sent it to your personal one.
yes, send it to my personal one.
All right. Well, shoot that back. I've got it in my phone, but shoot that back to me.
I'll text it to you right now so I don't forget.
All right. All right, class. Thursday, Megan, we're going to explore the Orangeburg Massacre with Cecil Williams.
Oh, yes. He's one of my favorite people.
Yes. All right. I'll see you guys on